Hello and welcome back. Welcome again to Sports Biz from an agent's perspective. I hope you guys are well, man. Yeah, I hope you're excited to see me in video today. But yeah, we're back, man. We're back in video format. Over the past couple of months, I've been sort of like dabbling and trying, different, um, softwares, so to speak, and seeing, which one works the best. And I mean, as much as I like audio and everything, um, I have been wanting to. Let me just move this closer. Yeah, I have been wanting to sort of like move into the video format type of thing because I do want to start uploading a bit more of our content on YouTube and stuff like that, and just see where it goes. When I think it's just an evolution type of thing. But yeah, audio has been awesome, and it's actually less work because when you're doing audio, flip man, you could just wake up and you know sound of vuga type of thing, and you could just get on the mic and record. But yeah, good to see you guys again. I hope everyone's keeping well. Yeah, it's hot. It's a hot ass summer here in Japan, and yeah, I mean, we're just keeping on. You know, you see, I'm rocking my summer regalia. We got our sports bears apparel, streetwear. This is sort of like, how can I say, graffiti style design that we had made. So yeah, you can check those out. We've actually got our own sports bears apparel website that we have been working on. That's actually why we've been MIA, because there's been so much that we've been working on. So we do have the sports bears apparel um, online store that is up and running, fully functional. You can order products over there. Obviously, they'll be fulfilled, and you'll get your products. So make sure to check the website out. I'll make sure to drop the website on the description of the podcast. All right, so you guys can check it out. My sister gave it a stamp of approval, and she said she likes the website, and she said as soon as she saw it, she just like wanted to buy immediately. So yeah, make sure you check that out. You can check out a whole lot of these. We got these T-shirts, and we got a whole lot of other merch that is available on the Sports Biz Apparel website. The website is strictly only merchandise, nothing else. That's what it's for. We actually wanted to separate a little bit from Athlete Network so that we could um, have a fully functioning online store that's only dedicated to our sports apparel brand, because that's the future. We've been looking at in terms of sports biz apparel is really going hard on the apparel space, and making sure that yeah, we deliver quality apparel to our customers. Anyway, so today's topic, again, this is the first time I'm recording in a few weeks. I think the last time I recorded was about 2 weeks ago. And today's topic, we're actually going to talk about something I actually blogged about on athletenetwork.net. Shout out to that site as well. You know, um, if you're an avid reader and you want to read more, on the sporting content that we put out, you're welcome to check out our stuff. It's available on athletenetwork.net. That is www.athletenetwork.net. Anyway, so moving on to today's topic, you know, and this is actually a conversation I had, when I was just talking to my sister about just, because I love talking about the business of sports and just how I see things. And I was actually thinking, and the one time I'm like, and I love referencing back home. I'm from South Africa. I love South Africa. Um, I loved playing rugby when I was in South Africa. But the one thing that just keeps, hitting me, and I just can't ignore it anymore, is the fact that, guys, how is it that in 2026, a kid comes up to you and they say, listen, I want to play professional rugby. How is it that in 2026 you have to look at the kid and tell them, well, that's a good dream to have, because I mean, rugby is the number one sport in South Africa. But you have to be honest with them and tell them that that means that you have to get a job with one of five, major rugby teams for you to be considered, sort of like a high earning or well earning professional rugby player in South Africa. And that just didn't stick right with me. honestly. Um, it just doesn't. That how is it that in 2026 to be a well-earning, professional rugby player in South Africa, you have to be playing for either the Bulls, Lions, Cheetahs, Sharks, Stormers, and honorable mention. Okay, I'll mention the Griquas as well. How is it that that is the only way you can become a professional rugby player? Like, it's ludicrous. And then you look at all the top schools that are producing, quality talent that keeps coming through year on year. Um, yeah, it's crazy, man. It really is. Um, and I don't know, like, obviously one never has all the answers, but you also think though that isn't it time for a possible expansion? You know, whether it's an expansion league, whether it's an expansion team, isn't it time for that? But before we talk more about that, remember this is episode 100, I think, and 92. So I hope you guys have enjoyed, most of our content. I didn't even say who you with. You're with your host Zila, aka Chester Bekela. And like I said, today we're talking a little bit about just the business of rugby and just how certain things, it just seems like at the moment they're just not making sense, because it doesn't make sense that you've got such a huge talent pool of high school talent that is coming through year in, year out. I mean, you've got so many high school phenoms that are bursting onto the scene on a yearly basis, and then you ask the sad question that, okay, this kid is good, this kid is phenomenal, but for him to make it to the cream of the crop, for him to be considered a well earning professional rugby player that's able to make a living solely, in playing rugby, and obviously having access to, the endorsement deals and all, the good stuff that comes with being a professional rugby player, that the kid needs to play for one of 10 teams. Like, yo, guys, how do we reconcile that, man? And obviously, you never want to discourage a kid, because I mean, I remember when I was a hungry young buck, man, trying to, make it in this rugby game. There were a lot of people that were like, "You're wasting your time. You're not gonna make it." Da 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 da. And obviously, I found a way around it, and my option was playing abroad. But this is me thinking of the kid that doesn't have the desire to go overseas, because again, not everyone has, just put a pillow behind my back. Not everyone has the desire to go play abroad, if we're going to be honest. Some people are just, comfortable, playing at home. They love playing in front of, their home crowd. They love playing in front of their families, their spouses, and so forth and so forth, cousins, brothers. And being in a foreign environment just would not work for them, because number one, they'll get homesick. Number two, they just don't see themselves as high performing if they're not within their comfort zones. So you just always think about that kid, because I mean, when I was coming up again, obviously the big five was still the big five. Honorable mention, Khik was number six. But there were other unions that were at least, decent at the time. I mean, there were the Leopards. When I finished high school, I moved down to Poch, and I was at the Perker Rugby Institute. And I got some time with the Leopards and the 19 at Curry Cup level, and on a 21 level as well. So that is a point that I'm trying to make, in that there were other unions that were decent, and then I also got a chance with the Falcons as well in my actual under 21 year when I was 21. Um, but I don't know, man. It just seems like ever since COVID, all the other teams, like if you're looking at all the tier two teams, if we're gonna be honest and keep it 100, when you're playing tier two, when you're playing for one of the tier two teams, like SWD, Falcons, Pumas, Griffins, Leopards, Border, and so forth, you're pretty much playing semi-pro. That is, the unpopular opinion about it. You honestly are playing semi-professional, because yeah, man, it's I mean, some of those teams do pay decent salaries, but it's not life changing money. It's not enough money where the guy can really, feel totally secure, if you know what I mean. Because I mean, the money that they're making in the big five unions, that's crazy money. That is crazy money, and obviously, when you're playing for the top tier teams, that also puts you eligible to get sponsorships easier. It's easier for a brand like Nike to associate themselves with a guy who's playing for one of the big teams in South Africa, who's constantly on TV, and yeah, and basically is a big name brand. Because again, let's face it, when you're playing for one of the smaller unions, you're not really a big name brand. Sometimes if you got a good agent, you might get lucky and you might be able to land like a boot deal, or like a mini sponsorship. Some guys, I remember when they were playing for the Leopards, I mean, they were able to swindle and get car sponsors, but those were very far and few, in between in terms of players. So yeah, that is pretty much, I guess, the gut wrenching part about it. And again, and nobody challenges the status quo, and you just wonder what would work. Would an expansion team? Because if I'm going to compare rugby, like let's go to the US and look at their sports. Like for example, you look at it, the NFL. When the NFL started, I think they also started with a few teams as well. And then as the league progressed, then expansion teams were put in place. Same as the National Basketball Association, the NBA. There have been expansion teams because the truth of the matter is, if you want the game to grow, and you want to provide opportunities for more talent to come through, they have to think about expansion teams you know and I'm not talking tier 2 teams, like, no, teams that can be put on the same sort of like league as the big guns, because you look at any other sport where you're dealing with top tier professional sports. There's no other country in the world where they've only got 6 teams. 6. You let that sink in. you know I mean, look at Japan, for example. I mean, Japan has the Japan Rugby League One competition. I think at Division One, they've got, I think, between 10 to 12 teams. And then at Division Two, I think they've got a few. But in total, Division One, Two, and Three, they've got 24 teams. 24 teams. That is decent. That means that more opportunities are created for players now. You're looking at, between, because I think Division Three, there's only like 8 teams, which makes sense, because again, rugby is not the number one sport here in Japan. So even participation would not be as large as what it is in South Africa. But just imagine though, if in South Africa we had that, same kind of system whereby, I guess, between Division One, Two, and Three, there were at least 24 teams, rather than there only being 6 major ones, and then the rest of the other ones are just basically semi-pro. I mean, that's preposterous. If we're really going to be honest. So you think about those things, that what would work. um, would expansion teams work, um, or would an expansion league work, whereby, yeah, you've got like a league that's like rivaling this one, because you honestly ask yourself, man, what would work? Because nowadays you can just see that players don't fall away because they weren't talented enough, guys. I mean, let's be honest about that. um some players just simply fall away because there was no space for them. you know they simply fall away because there was no space. And yeah, it's gut wrenching. It really is gut wrenching. And it makes you wonder, like, what do you tell a youngster that says, listen, I want to play professional rugby? you know um, what do you tell them? I think the best thing to do is to, so let's say, if you're a parent, or if you're a rugby player, you're a parent, your nephew, like for example, my nephew, he's playing rugby, he's phenomenal, he's quick. you know um, I think if a kid says, listen, I want to have a dab at this thing, I think it's important that as a parent or as a former player, maybe who's dealing with young players, you sit them down and you do the math that, okay, you say that you want to be a professional rugby player. Okay, let's look at, where things are, you know, and most importantly, for you to become the elite of the elitists, you're going to have to do something special, you know, you're going to have to be a cut above the rest. So I think by keeping that kind of, conversation going with them, and you're like, listen, imagine if doctors were studying medicine and hoping to work at a hospital one day, and they knew that there's only five hospitals available in South Africa to work in. I mean, that would be daunting. It truly would be daunting. And yeah, I don't know, man. I think, yeah, the growth of our game. I don't know if it's been done on purpose. Again, I don't really keep tabs or in touch with rugby from back home. I mean, I watch from a distance, but it is mind-boggling for me that in 2026, when you're talking about top tier one rugby domestically in South Africa, there are only six teams that a well-earning professional rugby player or an aspiring um, professional rugby player, well-earning professional rugby player, can only play for one of six teams. Yeah, it's ludicrous. It's extremely ludicrous because, again, I don't like to make too many comparisons, but having played in so many countries, I'm a person who, I observe. I like to observe, and then I sort of like make comparisons, to where I'm from. That, okay, this is how it is where I'm from. Okay, over here, whoa. I mean, you look at French top 14, they've got 14 clubs at least in the French top 14. And then you've still got the Pro D2, where they've also got a number of clubs. So the opportunity and the chances of turning pro in those countries are exceptionally high, you know? So you look at the Aviva Premiership. The last time I knew the Aviva Premiership, I think they had about 16, 15 or 16 teams. That's still a significant number of teams. Nah, guys, six teams. No, 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 no. Something's amiss. Something's amiss. I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, all I'm saying is we continue to lose a lot of talent, not because youngsters don't want to work or maybe youngsters don't want to play, but because there aren't any jobs, guys. Because at the end of the day, if a kid's trying to become a professional rugby player, he has to be playing at a level where he can make a living off of this. Because again, this career, it's not forever. It's not forever. Anyway, that's just stuff that was on my mind, and I thought I would just, jump on here and just share. I'm sorry if I'm looking a little bit sweaty, guys. It's hot out here. It's hot out here. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. At least just doing video, format. I think it is time to really truly commit myself now to getting on the video. And I think it's a good way to also, showcase some of our merch we have on sportsbizapparel.com. Again, like I said, I'll definitely link the the link to our sports apparel and merchandise so you guys can check out. We've also got amazing sneakers, SB sneakers, that we've re-released as well. That's also available on the Sports Biz Apparel website. Um, what else? What else do I want to plug in? Oh yeah, definitely want to plug in our books as well. As I've said in previous episodes of the podcast, man, many previous episodes, we actually created, well curated, well published books for athletes at every single phase of their career. All right, so that means, literally from if you're a child and you've got a wild imagination, I would definitely recommend our children's book, The Magic Oval Ball. This book we wrote and rewrote and republished. Um, so yeah, something for the kiddies that they can enjoy and just using their imaginations. Story. It's about a little boy who finds a magic, rugby ball, oval ball, and then it basically takes him all around the world. He sees magical places and just yeah. Make sure you get the book so that you can get your kids' imagination running wild. And the other book that we have is the Student Athlete: The Gift and the Curse of Taking on That Journey. This was a very personal book for me because it was a book that allowed me to basically tell my story of, going from playing high school rugby, um, onto playing university rugby, and just the trials and tribulations of navigating that space. It's a very challenging path, becoming a student athlete at university level, because you're trying to get a degree, but at the same time you're also trying to turn into a professional sportsman. So a lot of lessons were learned during that, during that journey. And yeah, I basically talk about that. And yeah, you can definitely find that on Amazon.com, same as the Magic Oval Ball, available on Amazon.com. What else? And then our third book, this is for athletes that are completing university, but maybe there are no opportunities for them within their domestic country. Again, referencing back to what I just talked about now, whereby in South Africa, you can be a very good rugby player, but you still might not make it because, well, the talent pool is too large and teams have they're spoiled for choice, so you might get overlooked. So if that does happen to you, I do recommend our book, which is Playing Sports, Studying, or Working Abroad. The Blueprint. Let me just make sure I've got the name right. It's a very long name. All right, so bear with me. So where's this book? Where's this book? It is yeah, Playing Sports, Studying, or Working Abroad. The Blueprint to taking that chance and making it happen. All right. So make sure you get that book. That basically teaches you on how, on what you need to do to make the move abroad. It's not an easy thing to do, but this book is definitely a good blueprint and can show you the different avenues you can take if you want to go play overseas. All right. And then the last book that I recommend, again, this is another one that's been very personal to me, as I've gotten to witness after retiring, from playing pro and semi-pro rugby, that a lot of athletes, man, they really do struggle, with the. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the book so I don't butcher the name of the title. Yeah, okay. A lot of athletes, struggle with the transition once they're done playing. You work so hard to get to the level, you live the dream, you play the sport that you've always wanted to play, either as a professional or semi-pro, and then it's time to retire. A lot of players retire without a plan, they retire with no skills. So finding that next chapter becomes a hell of a task, you know. And some guys actually find themselves in a very dark place where, some are going through depression, some guys start abusing drugs, and it just becomes a very ugly, phase, in a retired athlete's life. So the name of this book is called How to Evolve and Transition Within the Sports Industry. All right. Within the book, I basically detail potential, second chapters that guys can pursue while they're actually playing and once they retire. All right. So the best advice I can give to any athlete out there: start the earlier, the better. I swear to you, the earlier, the better. Because if you wait too long, then the anxiety of, oh no, D-Day is near, it might get to you, and you might not be able to really um, go into something because now you're not even sure. There's just too much going on. Whereas if you start from a young age, as soon as you get into the pros, as soon as you're making money and playing rugby, those off days are for self-development, guys. Those off days are for self-development. Your off days are not for you to sleep until noon and then play video games and then just go, hang out with your girlfriend and then the next day back to practice. Because I'm telling you, those years add up and it goes by quickly. It goes by so fast. I promise you. It goes by so quickly. So again, within this regard, I was very fortunate in the sense that, you know, for me, getting an opportunity to play pro and semi-pro came way later in my life. So I had to focus on school first to graduate. So by the time I was getting these opportunities to play abroad, I already had an education. I already had something to fall back on. But not every single athlete is like that. Some guys are so blessed with talent, they get drafted straight out of high school and they're straight into a professional setup and they start making money straight away. So rugby becomes their vocation. The unfortunate part is that it's only limited. All right. So the last book I'm talking about now, it's also available on Amazon. And again, I detail basically how athletes can, seek that secondary chapter, just like I've had to do, yeah. So opening up businesses, starting a podcast, setting up an online blog, where I can talk about the sports business, starting my own agency. All of those things came from, um, I guess trying things, But again, like I'm saying, I was fortunate to have an education behind me, so I was very strategic in how I've been approaching everything. But I know not everyone is in my position. Not every single, semi-pro, pro rugby player, has graduated. Most semi-pros might have, but I know a lot of guys that are playing, you know, as full-time athletes who, don't really have an education to fall back on and stuff. So check the books out. They're all available on Amazon. I'll also make sure to link, um, the link to all the books that are available on Amazon on the description of the podcast. All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. And again, I hope you like, our, graffiti style sports biz apparel themed t-shirt. Like I said, we've got so much more stuff that is available on our website. Go to www.sportsbiz dash or hyphen sports hyphen biz hyphen apparel.com and you can see what I'm talking about. All right. All right. So, yeah, have yourselves a lovely day, lovely evening, and a good morning. All right. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.